howling wind cut through the dense forest like a knife, carrying with it the echo of our desperate screams. I stumbled through the underbrush, branches clawing at my skin, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. The flashlight in my hand flickered, casting erratic beams of light that danced across the twisted, ancient trees surrounding me. I could hear them behind me, their footsteps crunching on the dry leaves, drawing closer with every second. We should never have come here. This weekend getaway was supposed to be a break from our stressful lives, a chance to reconnect and relax. Instead, it had become a nightmare, a desperate fight for survival against an unimaginable evil lurking in the woods. I glanced back, seeing nothing but darkness, and pushed myself to run faster, ignoring the burning pain in my legs. The cabin was just ahead, its outline barely visible through the thick foliage. If I could make it there, maybe, just maybe, I would stand a chance. But even as I reached the clearing, I knew deep down that it was too late. The malevolent force that haunted these woods was relentless, and it was only a matter of time before it claimed us all. It had started innocently enough. We were a group of 6 friends, looking to escape the pressures of our daily lives. The idea of spending a weekend in a secluded cabin in the woods seemed perfect. We packed our bags, loaded up the car, and set off, full of excitement and anticipation. The drive was long but scenic, the winding roads leading us deeper into the heart of the forest. When we arrived, the cabin was everything we had hoped for, rustic yet cozy, nestled in a clearing surrounded by towering pines. The air was crisp and clean, and the silence of the woods was a welcome change from the constant noise of the city. We spent the first day settling in, exploring the area, and enjoying each other's company. As the sun set, we gathered around the fire pit, toasting marshmallows and sharing stories. Laughter echoed through the trees, and for a moment, everything felt perfect. It was Jake who first mentioned the local legend, a tale of an ancient evil that was said to dwell in the woods. "They say the forest is cursed," he began, his voice low and serious. "An ancient spirit, angered by those who trespassed on its land, was bound to these woods. It preys on the living, seeking revenge for the wrongs done to it." We laughed it off, dismissing it as nothing more than a spooky story meant to scare tourists. But as the night wore on, a sense of unease settled over us. The fire flickered, casting long shadows that seemed to move of their own accord. The wind picked up, carrying with it whispers that sent shivers down my spine. "Come on, Jake," I said, forcing a smile. "You're not really buying into this ghost story, are you?" He shrugged, his eyes scanning the darkened woods. "I don't know, man. There's something about this place. Feels off." We all felt it, though none of us wanted to admit it. The atmosphere had changed, the woods around us suddenly feeling oppressive and menacing. We decided to call it a night, retreating to the safety of the cabin. That night I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside the window, set my nerves on edge. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the forest. At some point, I must have drifted off, only to be jolted awake by a blood-curdling scream. I shot out of bed, my heart pounding. The scream had come from outside. I rushed to the window, peering into the darkness. In the faint light of the moon, I could see a figure stumbling through the trees, moving erratically. It was Sarah. "Sarah!" I yelled, throwing on my jacket and rushing out the door. The others were already awake, their faces pale with fear. "What's happening?" Mark asked, his voice trembling. "I don't know," I replied, grabbing a flashlight. "But we need to find Sarah. She's out there, and something's wrong." We moved as a group, our flashlights cutting through the darkness. The forest was eerily silent, the only sound our hurried footsteps and the occasional snap of a twig. As we neared the spot where I had seen Sarah, a foul odor filled the air, like rotting meat. I gagged, covering my nose and mouth with my sleeve. "There," Jake pointed ahead, his flashlight illuminating a patch of ground stained with something dark and wet. Sarah lay on the ground, her body twisted and broken, her eyes wide with terror. "No!" Amy screamed, rushing forward. I grabbed her, holding her back. It's too late, I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. She's gone. We stood there in shock, unable to comprehend what had happened. It was Mark who finally broke the silence. We need to get back to the cabin, he said, his voice firm. We'll be safer there. We moved quickly, our fear giving us speed. The darkness seemed to close in around us, the trees pressing closer, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands. I could feel eyes on me, watching, waiting. When we finally burst into the clearing, the cabin was a welcome sight. We barricaded the door, checking the windows to make sure they were secure. The atmosphere inside was tense, everyone on edge. We huddled together in the living room, the flickering fire the only source of light. What the hell is going on? Amy asked, her voice shaking. What happened to Sarah? I don't know, I admitted, but something out there is hunting us. We need to stick together and stay inside until morning. Jake shook his head. Morning might be too late. We need to find a way to signal for help. There's no cell service out here, but maybe we can start a fire, something big enough to be seen from the air. We agreed it was our best option. Mark and I volunteered to go outside and gather wood, while the others stayed inside to keep watch. The night air was cold, and every shadow seemed to hide some unseen threat. We worked quickly, gathering as much wood as we could carry. As we returned to the cabin, I felt a chill run down my spine. The woods were too quiet, the usual sounds of nocturnal animals absent. We piled the wood near the fire pit and set to work, using lighter fluid to get the flames going. The fire roared to life, the heat a welcome relief from the cold. We stood around it, hoping the light would keep whatever was out there at bay. But as the flames danced, I saw something move at the edge of the clearing. There, I pointed, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. A figure stood just beyond the light of the fire, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. What is that? Mark whispered, his voice filled with dread. The figure stepped forward, and I felt my blood run cold. It was Sarah, or at least it looked like her, but her eyes were empty, her face twisted into a grotesque mask of rage and pain. Sarah? Amy called out, stepping towards her. No, I grabbed her arm, pulling her back. That's not Sarah. The figure moved closer, its movements jerky and unnatural. The firelight revealed more details. Sarah's clothes were torn and stained with blood, her skin pale and lifeless. Stay back, I shouted, holding the flashlight like a weapon. The thing that had once been Sarah stopped, tilting its head as if considering us. Then, with a guttural growl, it lunged forward. We scattered, the fire our only protection. I could hear the others shouting, but their words were lost in the chaos. I grabbed a burning log from the fire, wielding it like a torch. Get back, I screamed, swinging the log. The figure hissed, retreating from the flames. But I knew it wouldn't stay away for long. We need to get inside, I yelled. Now, we ran for the cabin, slamming the door shut behind us. The thing outside pounded on the walls, its inhuman growls filling the air. We huddled together, the realization sinking in that we were trapped. What do we do? Amy sobbed. We can't stay here forever. I didn't have an answer. The cabin felt like a flimsy shield against the horrors outside. The fire was our only defense, but it wouldn't last forever. Hours passed in a tense silence, the thing outside eventually growing quiet. But we knew it was still out there, waiting for us to make a mistake. We need to find a way out, Mark said, his voice hoarse. There has to be another cabin, a ranger station, something. We discussed our options, knowing that staying put would only delay the inevitable. As dawn approached, we decided to make a break for it, hoping to reach safety before the sun set again. We gathered what supplies we could, preparing for the journey ahead. The forest seemed to watch us, the trees whispering secrets we couldn't understand. With the first light of dawn, we stepped outside, the cabin behind us a dark silhouette. We moved quickly, our senses on high alert. The forest was eerily still, the usual sounds of wildlife absent. We hadn't gone far when we heard it, a low, guttural growl that sent chills down my spine. The thing that had once been Sarah was back, and it wasn't alone. Shapes moved through the trees, their eyes glowing with a malevolent light. Run, I shouted, and we took off, the forest a blur around us. Branches tore at our clothes, the underbrush tripping us up. I could hear the others behind me, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. The growls grew louder, closer. Jake was the first to fall, a shadowy figure tackling him to the ground. His scream was cut short, the sound of tearing flesh filling the air. We didn't stop, couldn't stop. Survival instincts took over, driving us forward. One by one, they fell. Mark, Amy, all taken by the darkness that pursued us. I was the last, my legs burning, my lungs on fire. The cabin had been a trap, and the forest was a maze with no exit. I stumbled, falling to the ground. The figures closed in, their eyes glowing with that unholy light. I knew there was no escape, no salvation. The ancient evil of the woods had claimed us, testing our bonds and breaking them. As the darkness closed in, I felt a cold hand on my shoulder. I looked up into the face of what had once been Sarah, her eyes filled with a twisted glee. The last thing I heard was the whisper of the wind, carrying the echo of our screams. The cabin in the woods would stand empty once more, a silent witness to the horrors that had transpired. And in the darkness, the ancient evil would wait, ready for the next group of fools who dared to trespass on its cursed land.